universal Oracle kind of packaging mechanism going forward?
It's possible. IPS is an open architecture. It was designed to be used for multiple products. It's not designed just with Solaris in mind. It's designed for open vendor. It's not just within Oracle. It could be used for other stuff as well. So there's nothing to stop that. I'm not aware of any plans in that direction. I am responsible for the maintenance updates for Spark Supercluster. I forgot to mention that at the top. My team do the installation and configuration scripts for Spark Supercluster, which is why I've been a bit quiet on the patch blog over the last 18 months. And we do release what's called a quarterly full stack download patch. The Exadata guys came up with the name. That wasn't my idea. We would have called it quarterly maintenance update. But that is the entire stack on an engineered system, and it is coordinated to be installed in a certain sequence. And again, one of the key things with the engineered systems, as I'm familiar with Supercluster, is like if you were connecting a T4 and InfiniBand switches and Exadata storage cells, there's probably 20 different protocols you could use over InfiniBand, 20 different ways you could connect it and set it up and so on. One of the key things with the engineered systems is we've pooled our knowledge to select one, and one that we believe is the optimal in terms of performance, in terms of availability, in terms of various factors. And that means that because it is very set, if there is an issue, if there's a customer issue, it's a lot easier to debug, because we can rule out so many of the variables straight away because we know how that system is set up. And for example, we had an issue there which was an interaction between 11G02 rack. There's a thing called Dismon which checks heartbeats in a rack system. And the InfiniBand subnet manager under extreme load was returning odd return codes. So it returned no 0. And Dismon was misinterpreting that as a serious error and started evicting nodes. Now, we were able to debug that and get that from issue discovery to getting the fix back into Solaris was 10 days, into all releases. If that was a normal customer system under Solaris 10 rather than an engineered system, that would probably have taken us 4 to 6 months to diagnose what on earth was going on there. Was it the database? Was it pilot error? Had the customer set it up somehow funny? What was going on there? So that's one of the key things with engineered systems. And again, it's part of this simplification. If we know what's running, if it's standard, it's a hell of a lot easier to debug when something goes wrong. And that gets fast results for the customer. Any other questions on that?
Well, you said that the user land packages and stuff like that. There's something I'm a bit confused about. For instance, like when you suggest there are some security patches for GIMP and some other things in user land. But my understanding, I tried a while ago, so I could not install that GIMP security patch without doing a whole lot. Or that is
where the magic of IPS comes in, and that's where Pete has the secret sauce, and all we need to do is extract what's between his ears and get it down on paper. Man IPS with a very, very strong cup of coffee, and there are ways. I mean, so Pete.
So, Andrew just mentioned it. You have to unlock the package so you disassociate it from the incorporation, because you suddenly say, okay, Oracle say stay on the SIU path because that's what we've tested. And say you want to move pigeon forward, you say okay, find that path to unlock it, and then move that forward, and then you can then relock it to bring it back onto the reservation. So all the user lounge packages you can unlock.
I have it in the appendix.
Okay, fine.
Pete and Albert have been doing it. I was reviewing a TOI that they've been creating, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot of IPS commands from that. So in the fullness of time, I hope we'll get that released publicly. In the meantime, I know Pete and Albert have quite a lot of, and Glyn Foster have a lot of good documentation out on the Oracle Technical Network. So there is a lot of documentation on there on how to do it. It does take a bit of getting used to, in the same way that patching took getting used to as well. You know, why does it say that this package is already installed and all those gotchas. But yeah, you can do things like that. You know, as I said, by default it will go together. So if you want to move GIMP, you effectively unlock it to say I want to move this independently. Then you can update it, and then if you want, you can relock it so in future it will move with the rest of it, or you can keep it unlocked, or you can keep it frozen. So let's say you've got an app and it says I'll only work with this version of Apache. You could freeze Apache at that version and then move everything up. It's all possible. IPS is an incredibly powerful command. It just takes a bit of getting used to. So Solaris 11 maintenance policy. So this is, you know, rather than the techie stuff of how the commands work, this is the sort of concepts of what we're trying to do here. So as I said, we really want, you know, Solaris 11 updated as a unit. Just go to the latest SRU at whatever is your regular maintenance cadence, whether it's 3, 6, 9, or 12 months. 9 months is about average for most enterprise customers. But at a minimum, we want customers to update every 24 months, at a minimum. Because it's so frustrating when we're debugging a system that's 5 or 7 years old and you realize, you know, and the customer is screaming that this is a critical issue and you realize, we fixed that 4 years ago. It's just so frustrating because it doesn't help the customer to say we fixed it 4 years ago. It's, you know, so we really do want to try and encourage proactive maintenance. In reactive maintenance, we recommend applying the SRU which fixes the issue, so it may not be the latest, but it's the one that fixes the issue. And as I said, you know, the stuff we don't care about, do what you like with. But we do want to get customers back on the baseline over time because, you know, if you forget you've unlocked GIMP and 6 months later you're thinking, why am I seeing that bug in GIMP when the documentation says that's fixed in the SRU I have? Well, it's because you've got to relock it again. So, Solaris 11 granularity in IPS. Now, the guys who architected IPS are extremely clever. I've certainly got far more nips than I do. They maintain that fMRI strings are a human communicable form. I continue to disagree with them on that. And eventually I'll win. So this tells you that entire is obviously at SRU 8.5. That's obvious. And entire is, as the name suggests for once, it's a reasonable nomenclature. It's pretty much everything we should, not exactly, but pretty much it's everything we care about. Within entire is an incorporation, and give me the definition of incorporation because I always get it wrong.
The incorporation sets the versions of the software that you can install. It doesn't install any software in itself.
So effectively a set of dependencies which defines a surface. A surface. There you go, that's the surface. They have their own language. And within that we have other incorporations which define certain sets of functionality. So OSNet is operating system and network is the core of Solaris. IPS is the packaging, CDE for desktop, X, and so on. And these incorporations specify their dependencies. So what you would do with GIMP in userland is, well, let's say sendmail in OSNet. You could unlock sendmail from OSNet, which says, I want to move sendmail independently, and then you can do what you like. When you relock it, next time OSNet gets updated, and OSNet is part of entire, so when entire gets updated, it'll move forward. So the incorporations don't actually contain any software, it's effectively meta packages.
Yeah.
Now, from an install perspective, we have 3 default installs. So if you remember in Solaris 10 we had whatever, some WCXall, whatever, C user, whatever. In Solaris 11 we have 3. And again, this is where our nomenclature falls down as usual. We have what we call Solaris small server. We have something which is slightly bigger called Solaris large server. That has nothing to do with the size of the server. It is the size of the Solaris installed on the server. So small server is effectively the smallest one we would recommend. It's a starting point. If you want a secure system, if security is particularly important, start with small server, add the packages you need to that, if you need any packages. Large server has useful sysadmin utilities. Some of the GNU utilities, I think there's, is it NFSFTP?
I think it's whatever the file system types.
I actually have a list in the appendix of exactly what the difference is between small server and large server. And then desktop actually does what it suggests. Desktop has all the other stuff on it. So, for Solaris 11 maintenance, the idea, our plan for FOSS and userland is to keep up to date with the communities, keep up to date with things. And this is where, in the past, we ended up getting a little bit woolly because we've got very strict rules within Solaris around binary compatibility, very, very strict. So we won't update the kernel and end up blowing your applications out of the water. But it really didn't make sense for us to apply the same rules to FOSS. So we end up with a version of Perl or a version, you know, of whatever, which is way, way back. You know, and we did that in 8, 9, and 10. So the idea here is keep up to date with the community so it doesn't look like Solaris is getting really old and long in the tooth in some of this stuff. And with the desktop, since you know a lot of sysadmins now coming out of college and that will be Linux familiar, it's pretty much keep in sync with Oracle Linux, which is pretty much keeping in sync with Red Hat. Now, Solaris uses some of the userland utilities. It uses Perl, Java, Python, Shell, Apache, and so on. And so we really do want to keep those with the baseline. We do want to really keep those at the SOU level because Solaris is going to utilize those, so best to stick with what we've tested. But as I said, with things like Office, Thunderbird, Mozilla, we really don't care what version of those you run. It's entirely up to you. So we'd like customers to stay on an SOU within 12 months of current. SOUs for one update cease as soon as the next update is released. So once 11.1 ships, the SOUs will be based on 11.1 rather than on 11.0 or 11 SCS. Therefore, if you're sustaining, because each update release contains a lot of features, that's where you might have interactions with third-party hardware, third-party software, and so on, if they are not using APIs. If they're using APIs, we guarantee binary compatibility. It's where they're doing kooky stuff, like we found out some multi-packing products were in, I think it was Solaris 10 update 10, that's where you might get some breakages. We do want customers within 24 months of current in order to get discrete fixes in IDRs. And that 24-month limit is there because we recognize there are occasions where a 12-month limit is simply too tight. There's some old servers or that they simply don't get to within 12 months. So we will create IDRs providing relief on any baseline within 24 months of current. So we've only been released for 11 months, so that's any baseline that exists at the moment. So if you stay within 24 months of current, you will get a discrete fix in a break-fix situation. That's not a radical change. 86% of Solaris 10 IDRs are based upon a patch level which is within a year of current. And it's probably 98% within 2 years of current. So it's not a radical change there. As with Solaris 10, if you move up, let's say you're on SOU 4 and you've got an IDR there, and you want to move up to SOU 8, and the bug still hasn't been fixed in SOU 8 for whatever reason, maybe it's a high-risk bug fix, you can request a new IDR based on SOU 8, and that will be delivered to you by our sustaining team. That's exactly the same as with Solaris 10. And same as Solaris 10, as soon as that bug is actually fixed in an official release in an SOU or in a recommended patch set, support for the IDR ceases. The customer is expected to update to the official bug fix as soon as practicable. So what we will do with IDRs is once we get another year, hence, and we're 24 months after Solaris 11 shipped, we'll start adding a dependency to the IDRs. And that dependency will be on the 24-month-old SOU, 24-month-old entire. And that will drag the system up, kicking and screaming, to at least within 24 months of current. And that simply is, we believe, the right thing to do with customers so that we're not investigating issues that we fixed 4 years ago. That's no good for the customers, no good for us. So basically, if